Here's the question I have, and sometimes I do get upset with the matchmaking, but is PBC Premier Boxing Champions good for boxing? How about this? Is Al Haymon good for boxing? Now, if you don't know, Top Rank and Golden Boy filed lawsuits against Al Haymon and Premier Boxing Champions and the investors of Premier Boxing Champions. And basically, the investors pretty much, the lawsuit has lost its footing. The lawsuit means nothing anymore. Why? It's because a judge ruled that I forgot exactly I forgot what the exact wording was, but basically the lawsuit has no legs. You know, they're trying to say that Al Haymon is operating as a manager and promoter. Us boxing fans know that, yes, he is doing so, but he found some type of loophole where he's able to do so. And for some reason, I just don't think that a judge would look at what Al Haymon is doing as hurting the sport of boxing. Boxers are getting paid. Boxers are getting taken care of. Fights, we're seeing more fights than we've ever seen before in the history of boxing, even though they may not be the matchups that we want. And another part of me, as a black man, I don't want to throw a race into it, makes me think that maybe these other, promotional companies have an issue with this black man being in charge, or black man doing all these major moves. After all, they didn't bring boxing to free television. Even though we may not like the matchups, they're not bringing us these fights to free television. They're not making sure we have something to watch every other day when it comes to boxing. So when it comes to all the hate that Al Haymon gets, I can understand to an extent, because I don't like fights like Danny Garcia versus Rod Salka. I don't like fights like Erislandy Lara versus Jan Zavek. I don't like fights like Deontay Wilder versus Johan Duhaupas. But I think to myself, it hasn't been fully a year yet. I'm going to wait until after a year before I really start to give PBC Al Haymon shit for not giving us the best possible matchups they can possibly give us. Because what if they came out during the first year, right, just giving us all these super fights, or what we consider to us super fights? It wouldn't be doing justice to the boxing fans. It wouldn't be, well, of course it would, because we'd be just seeing fights, but it wouldn't do justice to the boxers as far as their marketability. Okay, for example, right, what if we were to get a Keith Thurman versus a Danny Garcia? What if we were to get that this year compared to next year? It'll be much more bigger fight. Now, I'm not making excuses for the fighters not fighting each other. All I'm saying is this: I'm a Premier Boxing Champion supporter because I look past the like what's presented to us right now, and I'm looking at the grand scheme of things. I'm looking at the fact that Al Haymon is building stars, whether ratings are dipping or not, because PBC ratings are dropping steadily. He's still exposing these fighters to audiences they haven't been exposed to before. For example, you got Lamont Peterson fighting on NBC, Lamont Peterson fighting on national television. So when it comes to the lawsuit, I understand that other promoters are in a situation where they have to scram to put fights together because they don't have the clientele, and Al Haymon won't work with them, or vice versa. I understand where boxing fans are coming from too, where we would want to see fights like Keith Thurman versus a Timothy Bradley. We would want to see fights like a Mauricio Herrera versus a Adrian Broner. We would want to see fights like Danny Garcia versus a Ruslan Bivotnikov. That fight can happen. But the point I'm trying to make is the lawsuit just seems like, to me, it was bitter promoters saying this guy's doing too much, he has too many fighters, and we want to get him out of the sport. I don't even think it's about the money. I think that Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, Top Rank and Golden Boy Promotions, I think that they just want him out of the sport of boxing. Now, I can understand where Golden Boy is coming from with the lawsuit. I didn't understand where Top Rank was coming from, because Golden Boy is the promotional company who lost all the boxers to Al Haymon and PBC. So I can understand their lawsuit. But when it comes to the lawsuit of Top Rank, it's just like, oh, you hating. You know why? Because you don't got no fighters. Why? Because you're having all these situations with these fighters who want out of your stable, or who have been trying to leave, or who've been having money issues. And we don't hear none of that with PBC Premier Boxing Champions. So when it comes to this like Al Haymon lawsuit, I'm really starting to think that not Golden Boy. Golden Boy has a legitimate reason. I'm really starting to think that Top Rank was just like, fuck it, let's just try to sue anyway. We sick and tired of making all these carousel matches between Timothy Bradley. Let me tell you who they're like the problem that Top Rank has. Manny Pacquiao, Timothy Bradley, Juan Manuel Marquez, Brandon Rios, Ruslan Provodnikov, Diego Chavez, Terrence Crawford, and I'm sure I'm missing some names. But when it comes to like the big name fights, Top Rank is in a situation where they have to keep matching up the same fighters to fight each other, compared to the fact that PBC has all these welterweights, all these junior welterweights, all these super welterweights, and Top Rank is just left in a situation where they really don't have much to work with. I mean, look at Golden Boy. Golden Boy doesn't really have much to work with. Golden Boy has Matisse, who lost, David Lemieux, who lost, Mauricio Herrera, and I know they got a whole bunch of prospects, and Saul Canelo Alvarez as their big fighters. To where you have Al Haymon, PBC, who has all these fighters. So I can understand, you know, like where promoters are coming from, where they're saying, you know, like PBC and Al Haymon are, you know, taking over the market. They're trying to perform a monopoly and all that. But I'm thinking to myself, I don't want Al Haymon to have all the fighters. I admit, I don't want Al Haymon to control the whole landscape of boxing. But at the same time, I can't see what he's doing that's hurting the sport of boxing outside of not giving us the big fights. But it's like this, you can't really judge him not giving us the big fights until at least after a year. Like if we're still seeing bullshit fights next year and the year after, I mean, frankly, with the way things are going, if they don't start picking up ratings, it may not be a year after. But the point I'm trying to make is Al Haymon, PBC are in the driver's seat. They have all the fighters. And if the going ever got tough, they have all these super fights that they can make. PBC has super fights for days that they can make. What if Al Haymon one day just said, fuck it, I want to work with HBO and Showtime. I mean, I want to work with HBO again. You see, so I can't see a judge saying, oh, what you're doing is you're destroying the sport of boxing. And yeah, I can't see it. I can't see it. I understand the beef where they're saying that, you know, this one man is bypassing the promoters and all kind of stuff like that. But he's working with promoters. He has to work with promoters. One thing in the lawsuit was saying that Al Haymon was using sham promoters like Lou DiBella and Goose and Tudors, Warrior Boxing, TGB or TPG, I forgot what they're called, promotional companies. These boxing events do have promoters. It's just that these promoters are advised by Al Haymon. The man made up a whole new position on his own, an advisor. If you don't know what an advisor does, an advisor is a fighter who tells you, I advise that you fight him, but I advise you not fight him. I'm advising that we put this card on this promotional company, but I advise that you not fight on HBO. I advise that you stick with me. I advise you're going to make more money if you stick with me. You see what I'm saying? So I completely understand what it is that he's doing. I completely understand what the, well, I'm not going to say completely. I understand what the vision is. But the only issue I have is, just like fans, I want to see bigger fights. I want to see I want to see more mainstream fights. And I think that with the ratings not doing as well as they were when they first started, I think that PBC, Al Haymon, is in a situation where they have to start putting on mega super fights. But at the same time, to get those ratings, those big national television ratings, they have to make these fighters known to the national television audience, which I've been thinking they've been doing for this year, getting these fighters known. So therefore next year, when they start putting on mega fights, you can have, oh, well, I remember Danny Garcia fought on NBC and he fought on ESPN. So if you put Danny Garcia versus a Keith Thurman on an NBC after a year or so, those fighters should be developed in the minds of mainstream fans. I'm not going to sit here and talk all day about the subject. You know, I'm a PBC supporter and Al Haymon fan. PBC did a big favor for me earlier this year, and I'm in their debt. But at the same time, I'm not saying I'm going to just be supporting all the bullshit that they put out there. But I do understand that the vision that they're doing is to bring boxing to fans on a consistent basis. And with all those fighters that Al Haymon has and still signing, it's hard not to believe that they're not doing the right thing. So I'm T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. Please subscribe.